Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing fabulously well. I've got a fabulous story for you tonight, so don't forget to get that quintessential perfect drink, wherever you are, whether it's in Boston, whether it's in Houston, whether it's in Florida. Lots of love to each and every one of you. Go and get that drink, and let's get on with tonight's story. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Click the notification bell and the thumbs up. And let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah and all your lovely listeners. I don't think that's a good idea, Clay, said my mother, trembling, her coffee mug jiggling in her hands. I don't think you understand. I haven't seen my sister in over 6 years. It's going to be terribly awkward with her around. We weren't ever very close. I'm leaving the ranch for 2 weeks, sweetheart. I need to feel assured that things around here will run smoothly in my absence. Your sister being here will be a huge load off my back. You're making it sound as if I'm incapable of moving around on my broken leg. It was a horse-riding accident, for goodness sake, Clay. I'm not completely incapacitated. Even so, you need your sister's help in managing the household while I'm away. It seems she's very agreeable to the offer. To lend a helping hand, that is. Couldn't we just get a housekeeper for that? My mother almost begged. No, said my father, shaking his head. We need someone closer than that. Someone who can keep an eye on you and the kids while I'm away. Help you with the grocery shopping, picking up the children from school, stuff like that. Don't you get it, Clay Farrell? Me and my sister were never ever close. Why do you think I didn't invite her to our wedding? She's a Chicago girl through and through, a city slicker. She has no experience in country life whatsoever. You want to bring her here, Clay? Isn't that a little nonsensical of you? It's not nonsensical, Ruby. It's a wise decision. As I've told you, you need a helping hand. Your sister Gladys is delighted to be of help. She was saying it would be very good to catch up with you for old time's sake. She hasn't seen you for a very long time. She'd like to get to know her niece and nephew a little better, who I might add she's never met. My mother rolled her eyes. Clay, you've only opened a whole can of worms inviting my sister to stay like this. I'm not going to pretend I'm not dreading it, because dreading it I most certainly am. After my father had evacuated the kitchen, I pounced on my mother in surprise. You have a sister, Mummy? I have an aunt. Why did you never say? Because you didn't ask. There are some things that are best left unsaid, and your aunt is one of them. But why? She's my aunt. Don't I have a right to get to know her better? I know all Dad's sisters, but I didn't even know you had one. Be very careful what you ask for, Pumpkin. Some packages are best left undisturbed, but your father is intent on opening this one up. Goodness only knows why. I wish he would leave well alone. The last thing we need is Gladys turning up here. But your father seems dead set on this absurd idea of his. And once he has a bee in his bonnet about something, well, wild horses won't stop him in his endeavours. I didn't know what to think. I was 12 years old at the time. My mother was acting seriously weird. I mean, why was she so adverse to seeing her sister again, who she hadn't crossed paths with for over 6 long years? You would think that after her dreadful riding accident, this would be the perfect excuse for her to get reacquainted with her after so long. Yet I had seen a hurt in my mother's eyes, a forgotten pain that had come bounding back into her life like a lost dog, but one she was not eager to become reacquainted with. I might have been many things, young, naive, and very ignorant at the time, but one thing I knew without a shadow of a doubt was that my mother's mysterious sister had indeed been a root cause of a tortuous pain in her life that she had wilfully chosen to ignore. I had noticed the stray tear gliding down her cheek, which she had quickly abated by shoving it away with the wipe of her long-sleeved top. My mother had said that my father was opening a can of worms. I sensed that she might be right about that. After all, there had to be a very good reason why my mother had fallen out with her sister in the first place. I seriously hoped in my heart that it would not happen with me and my older brother Tyler. I couldn't imagine not seeing him for 6 years. That in itself would have been tortuous for me. My family lived on a cattle ranch in Colorado, An arrestingly beautiful part of the world that would quite literally take your breath away. Even when we returned from the grocery store or home from school, I'd often glance out of the passenger side window of my mother's truck, staring in awe at the beguiling scenery, hardly daring to believe that we owned it all. It would seem that underneath the vast expanse of the cobalt blue sky was a sprawling oasis of luxuriant green rolling hills, with a backdrop of mountainous views that rose up into the sky like masterful pyramids, smudging the landscape in hazy blurs of purples, greens and blues. You could be forgiven for thinking you were visiting a very well-maintained, beautiful park, as everything was so vibrant, so lush, so electric green, with a huge lake that shimmered like a silvery jewel under the noonday sun, reflecting the glorious trees, the sky, the clouds on its rippling surface. Then there were trees, large, small, medium-sized, gathered together in huge clusters like celestial beings, offering shade and cover for the cattle and people alike. On every side we had stylized fields that were gracefully hemmed in with white picket fencing. I loved how the white fencing would accentuate the rich greens of the vibrant landscape. I remember the morning when Gladys, my mother's sister, arrived at our ranch, with a poignant crystal-clear clarity that has never left me, after my dad had left for his 2-week trip abroad, a gathering of cattle ranchers from all over the globe, getting together to discuss business, float around new ingenious ideas. In a trice a taxi drove down our long driveway, grinding to a swift halt, as a splattering of pebbles was spat out from beneath the hardened bonnet, like the popcorn bursting from a heated pan and flying everywhere. I could see the vehicle parking outside our ranch-style home, hear the handbrake being pulled up, the engine switched off. All was still for a moment, and then the silence was broken by a flurry of swift, efficient movements. I could see a woman with long, straight, bottle-blonde hair getting out of the taxi and moving towards the trunk, where the taxi driver hauled out a very sizable suitcase. "So this is all you've got, miss, is it?" he asked, hauling out the suitcase for her, that looked like it was bursting at the seams and about to explode in any given minute, as if she'd brought along everything, including the kitchen sink. She didn't know the meaning of travelling light, that was for sure. "That's it," came the quick response. "Thank you," she said, opening her purse and throwing the driver a big fat tip, which he took gratefully, nodded, and then turned away. "Enjoy your stay here in Colorado, ma'am. This is some fine ranch you've got here. Wouldn't mind staying here myself." I could hear the truck door slam behind itself, an engine starting up, the taxi driving away down the long ribbon of asphalt that was fringed by a sea of pebbles that made up our driveway, until the hum of the engine had all but dissipated into the ether, to be heard no more. For a moment the woman stood still, her cornflower blue eyes covered by a pair of very glamorous Gucci sunglasses that seemed to glide over the house with an open curiosity. But I did sense that there was a troubled nervousness to her gait, rather like a reluctant horse being broken in for the first time, and not knowing exactly what to expect, or whether to even trust the daunting, intimidating process in the first place. This was my mother's sister Gladys. I could hardly believe it. They were as different as day as tonight, on first impressions, that is. I could see that she was dressed like a fashion-conscious city slicker, as everything about her was so perfectly manicured, without a single hair out of place, like one of those fancy hedges you get in ornate Japanese gardens, being shaped within an inch of their lives. You could see that she was out of place on a Colorado ranch, rather like a rose in a desert. This very well made-up young woman, that looked like she was dolled up to the nines, as if she was auditioning for a part in Days of Our Lives. She was wearing a very glamorous glitzy denim jacket that twinkled, glittered and sparkled from the diamante patterns that swathed the blue fabric in a stylized design of silvery diamonds. She was wearing an expensive pair of black leather pants, a pair of very ornate cowgirl boots, with curved patterns of flowers and leaves interspersed into the leather, in varying shades of reds, browns and blues. Granted, she was trying to look like a cowgirl, but her efforts, although admirable, were way off the mark. You could see at a single glance the girl had never been on a ranch a single day in her life, a true fish out of water, so to speak. The woman seemed apprehensive as she dragged her Gucci suitcase by its back wheels up the steps of our wraparound porch towards the front door. My mother's face was unsmiling, She was a fresh picture of simplicity, decked out in her blue plaid shirt and jeans, while clutching the crutch in her hand to support her broken leg. You might have expected warm welcomes, tears, hugs, but that was not what I witnessed. It was like the moment Gladys entered our house, so did a chilly cold breeze along with her. Yet this was a fine day for Colorado, warm, friendly, inviting, but it felt anything but, as the tension in the house was almost electric. "It was good of you to come," said my mother stiffly. Her cold words were almost icy. "It's the least I could do, sis, in the circumstances. I heard about your nasty accident on that horse of yours. You poor, poor thing. You took some knocking there. When Clay told me he was going away for 2 weeks, needed someone to take care of you and the kids, I jumped at the offer, as after all, what are sisters for? I knew you needed my help. So here I am, sis. It's been so long, far too long." "Not long enough," said my mother. Her words were tight, emotionless, guarded. "I don't know why Clay had to phone you. I can manage perfectly well on my own, without any help." Gladys ignored my mother's remarks, as her blue eyes focused on me and then my brother Tyler, who was standing in the entrance hall, watching her, as if observing an exotic new species of animal at the zoo. For indeed my mother's sister, with her high fashion ensemble, stood out like a sore thumb on a Colorado ranch, but not in a bad way necessarily. She was just different. It would take a while for her to grow on us, or for us to adjust to this colourful new character in our lives, so to speak. "So this must be my niece, am I right?" said Gladys, turning her attention onto me, studying me through keen, curious eyes. I nodded. "I'm Juniper," I told her. "That's my brother Tyler." "Juniper? I love the name. It's so unusual." "My dad chose it," I told her. "He says juniper trees are very, very special. The Native Americans saw them as sacred. That's why he calls me Juniper." "Well, that makes sense," said Gladys. "After all, you're a very special girl, aren't you?" I flushed with delight at the compliment. Maybe my mother's sister wasn't so bad after all. Nonetheless, as nice as Gladys seemed on the surface, I didn't enjoy or relish having her awkward intrusion in our lives. It felt as if dark thunderclouds hung around our home like a rumbling distant storm looming on the horizon, threatening to rain down some alarming lightning strikes in any given moment. Even my brother, who was not the most perceptive person at the best of times, was appalled by the tension that accumulated in our home. "Something happened between the two of them," he said. "Something bad, rarely bad. I've never seen Mum so clammed up and edgy before. Her sister, well, that woman looks as comfortable as a giraffe would be in a horse stable. This was a crazy idea of Dad's to bring those two together again. Forget the Second World War, sis. I can feel World War III brewing. It's starting up in our own home." It was certainly true. It would seem the more my mother and her sister were in each other's company, the worse things became, as the congested, rising negative energy built up like a pressure cooker in our home. I knew it would only be a matter of time before those two had it out with each other. Perhaps it would be a good thing in coming, I thought. Clear the air after a heavy storm. A fresh start, I hoped. In her own way, my aunt had been a huge help, as her mobility meant that she was picking up groceries, collecting us from school, helping my mother out wherever possible, even in the kitchen, by assisting her in cooking evening meals. The two sisters barely said a word to each other, just nodded and said yes or no. It really was as basic as that. Me and my brother knew absolutely nothing about my aunt or her illustrious city life in Chicago. We couldn't comprehend why she was choosing to stay with us at all, in such an unwelcome, hostile and unconvivial atmosphere. My mother was making it clearly apparent that Gladys was not welcome. I know if I'd been wearing her shoes, I would have hightailed it from our ranch a long time ago, but I must say the tenacity of Gladys was remarkable. Dinner was the worst part of the day, when we gathered together to eat, engaging in a few social niceties, with the usual warm sunshine and laughter we were used to not apparent. You could have cut the silence with a knife, as no one said a word around the table. All you could hear was the clitter-clatter of cutlery as we ate our food in silence. One evening my brother broke the awkwardness. "I see you're not married, Aunt Gladys. I couldn't help but notice you don't have a wedding band or an engagement ring." My aunt flushed, while my mother regarded her through dagger-sharp eyes. If looks could kill, my mother was wearing that look. "Never did meet the right man, Tyler. People say it's easy finding love, but I've tried everything. Blind dates, you name it. I've never met the right one. It's a minefield out there finding that nugget of gold, so to speak, let me tell you that. Well, don't give up. I mean, you may be old, but you're not ancient. You still have a chance. Besides, you are quite pretty, but you do wear far too much makeup. Maybe a little less might make you look more real, if you don't mind my saying so. I think you'd be better without it. That's very reassuring, Tyler. I'll have you know I'm 37. There's life in the old dog yet. As for wearing makeup, you need all the help you can get when you reach my age, Tyler. 37, said Tyler, who was 14 at the time. In my book, that doesn't make you very young. Later that night I woke up with a start, glancing briefly at my bedside clock. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I could hear the sounds of raised voices coming from the kitchen. It sounded like someone was having an altercation. I knew instinctively that the pressure cooker had boiled over. My mother and Gladys were at each other's throats. This I had to see. I stealthily tiptoed towards the kitchen, hiding myself behind a high column. My mother's face was as dark as a thundercloud, as she looked at her sister with such a defiant expression of hatred on her face that was so fierce it even scared the hell out of me. The words that came out of her mouth throbbed with pain, as she stumbled and choked on them, as if even speaking them out loud was actually stinging her. Neither woman were aware I was standing there in the kitchen, watching this scene unfold. "What you did to me in here," said my mother, pointing to her guts. "You might as well have ripped my insides out. You knew he was the love of my life, but you stole him from me, like you've stolen everything else from me in my life. How could you take the one thing, Gladys, the one thing in the world from me that meant the world? How could you? How could you do that? I don't understand. I was your sister, for goodness sake. Didn't that count for anything? Isn't there a code of ethics somewhere not to try and steal your siblings' boyfriends? If there isn't, there should be. Because let me tell you, Gladys, when I saw the two of you in bed together, you might as well have plunged a knife right into my guts." "I didn't mean it," came a limp voice. I guess I was jealous. The two of you were so in love. I suppose I got carried away. It wasn't his fault. I was the one pushing. I was the one pushing the boundaries. He said he loved you, but one thing led to another. It didn't mean anything. I wanted him to see me, to look at me like he looked at you." "It didn't mean anything, did it, Gladys? You know how warped that sounds. You sounding like a soap opera. You really disgust me. But sis, if you loved him so much, why did you break up with him? You knew he wasn't interested in me. He never would have been. But after you broke up with him, he was a broken man, really broken. You let him believe that you didn't love him anymore. Now that was heartless. That was cruel. He was never the same after that. Granted, he's a married man now, 3 children, I gather, a successful Chicago entrepreneur. But you, sis, you were the love of his life, ingrained in him like the tattoo on his flesh." Right, I've heard everything now, Gladys. You think it was cruel, do you, me breaking up with Nathaniel? You think it was cruel? You were the one, sis, that was cruel. You were the one that baited him with all that alcohol to lower his inhibitions. You were the one that willfully seduced him. You ruined our lives. You destroyed our happiness. I wasn't going to return to the man. Credit me with having some pride and self-respect, will you? He betrayed my trust. Forgiving him would have made me weak and pathetic. But you are happy now, aren't you, sis? You live on a beautiful ranch. You have a devoted husband. I can tell that Clay loves the bones off you. You have 2 incredible children. You have a phenomenal life. Why can't we just move on? Forgive. Let go of it all. I'm very happy, sis. Clay is a great husband, that's true. My 2 children are absolutely perfect. Life on the ranch is wonderful, idyllic. But Nathaniel, he was the love of my life. You took him from me. I never ever loved anyone like I loved him. I love Clay with all my heart, but no one could hold a candle to Nathaniel. I would have to live 1,000 lifetimes to meet someone like him again. For a moment the kitchen was hit violently by a cataclysmic, ominous bomb. The sound of silence. All you could hear was the ticking of the grandfather clock. which was oddly bizarre, because I'd never really noticed it before until now. Yet now I was hearing every tick, like a heartbeat in a tense situation. In a trice, breaking through the silence was a choking sound that morphed into sobbing. Gladys was crying. "I love you, sis. I always have. I've missed you so much over the years. I've never forgiven myself for what I did back then. I was so jealous. You had everything that I wanted. You were the one that was pretty. You were the one that was clever. You were the one that was funny. I suppose it elevated my self-esteem to prove to myself that I could be attractive to Nathaniel." "You think your apologies are going to make a jot of difference," said my mother. "It's all water under the bridge now." She pulled out flowers from a vase in the kitchen and threw them at my sister. "You ruined my life, sis. Isn't that enough for you? Are you happy now?" At that, my mother hobbled on her crutches, moved towards the kitchen door, shoving it open and venturing out into the backyard. "You can't go out," cried Gladys. "Your leg! What about your leg? You can't go out." "Leave me alone," came my mother's strangled voice. "Leave me alone, Gladys. Give me some space." I knew she wouldn't go far. I mean, how could she on that leg? I'm sure Gladys was thinking the very same thing. She'd possibly decided to give my mother the space she craved. Gladys looked up in my direction. "How long have you been standing there?" she asked, as she saw my small bewildered figure in pyjamas staring at her like a gog-eyed goldfish in the corner of the kitchen. "Well, I heard you fighting." Gladys frowned. "So you heard everything?" I nodded. "Look, I did a very silly thing all those years ago. I was young, foolish, naive, stupid. You can see I've really upset your poor mother. That's one of the reasons I came back. I needed to make my amends. I felt guilty for so long about all this. It's been weighing down on me so heavily. I know I can't fix things, but I can make things better. Sometimes it's all you can do, is to make things better. But you've made things worse. You've upset my mother. She was happy before you came here. But now that you're here, she's sad all the time." Gladys reached for a headlamp and jacket. "Let's go and get your mother, shall we? She can't have gone far on that leg of hers, but I'm worried she might trip over something and make things 1,000 times worse for herself. Where did you think she might have gone?" "Well, to the woods. My mother goes to the woods. She loves it there. She goes there to think." It was exciting walking out in the night with the cold air blowing against my face under the light of a full moon, along with a kaleidoscope of silvery stars. Gladys sighed with relief. "I'm so glad it's a full moon and such a bright night. At least she'll be able to see where she's going. She can't have gone very far." This is my mother's personal account. Seeing Gladys again was like opening up an old festering wound. I knew Clay was asking for trouble inviting her into our lives. I buried the memories of my past in the back of my mind like a squirrel storing away acorns for its upcoming hibernation. I didn't want to meditate on those painful times ever again. But the moment Gladys entered the threshold of my home, haunting memories came flooding back. Her betrayal, disloyalty, jealousy, vindictive past behaviours that had blatantly robbed me of any peace. It was as if they were playing out in my life all over again. Don't get me wrong, I was a very happily married woman who loved my husband Clay to death with all of my heart, along with my 2 wonderful children. I had absolutely no regrets in my life, as I had to reconcile myself to the idea that sometimes the path in life leads us down a different course, and you should always embrace it, wherever it may lead. After my unexpected altercation with Gladys in the kitchen, I could feel the anger throbbing through my veins like a heated inferno, or like a volcano getting ready to spew its fudge-like molten lava over a mountain. Gladys had admitted that she was jealous and insecure at the time, that she had seduced the love of my life. Granted, she hadn't meant to hurt me, but she had. It felt like once again a sharp blade had been thrust into my guts. It felt like a fresh wound. Finally, when I could take it no more, I had flung the flowers at Gladys, making a hasty retreat from the kitchen. I knew where I was going, to my favourite sanctuary in the woods. It was about 2:30 in the morning, but I didn't care. My heightened emotions meant I needed to get away from the ranch house as fast as I could. The atmosphere in there had been claustrophobic. I felt as if I couldn't breathe, as if my lungs burned with the stinging pain of my sister's confessions. It was a bright night. At least I could see where I was going, but my physical impediment was holding me back from my mission. I needed space, fresh air, lots of it, and more than anything else in the world, I needed to be left alone to breathe, to reflect, to think. I was making quick strides as I climbed through the wicker fence through a field of grazing cattle, who looked upon me curiously as I hobbled to the far end of the field, where I squeezed myself through the fence in the open clearing that fringed the edge of the woods. I was immeasurably grateful that although the tall pyramid-shaped ponderosa pines were clustered together quite closely, there was enough space between the canopy above to allow the soft waves of gentle moonlight to dance through the trees, lighting up my path in an ethereal light. Normally I would have been intimidated, even fearful venturing into the woods alone so late in the night, or early in the morning, so to speak. Indeed, there could be no end of predators loitering around here, and with a slightly impaired leg, I could be a sitting duck for a determined mountain lion. But those fears were expunged from my mind, for my frenzied emotions and elevated sense of anger had overtaken my angst. As I moved through the trees, I could smell the delicious butterscotch fragrances of the ponderosa pines. The sweet, refreshing smell brought me a measure of comfort. I was suddenly struck by the wild revelation that there were no croaking frogs or chirping crickets gracing the night, with their usual cheerful chorus. This was decidedly odd to me. My husband had always warned me that when the forest grows quiet, a predator is most certainly around. I glanced around me nervously, as I suddenly got the overwhelming feeling that I was being watched. But by what? The first thought that came into my head was a mountain lion. They had been seen on our property before from time to time, showing a keen interest in our calves. I sensed it again and again. Something was watching me. I could feel the eyes boring into me like a hammerjack. I could see nothing at all. It was exceedingly frustrating. Then I heard something, but what I heard was strange. It sounded like someone on 2 feet was walking towards me with deliberate intent. I could hear the crunching of twigs as they snapped beneath feet. Every step they took towards me was so loud, like someone was beating a heavy drum as the forest floor almost groaned, rumbled, heaved under the substantial weight of their lumbering approach. Whatever was moving towards me, I instinctively sensed was very, very huge. You would have thought I'd have run away in horror, screamed blue murder at the top of my lungs. But I was so caught off guard, as if I'd been stunned by a stun gun. I was trying to wiggle my way out of the disorientation, like a desperate dog flung into the water, doggy-paddling it back to the shore in a terrified fog of confusion. So I just stood there still for a while, hardly daring to draw breath. My heart pounding through my chest, my knees almost buckling beneath me. I was so glad to be hanging on to my crutch for dear life, because without it I might have just collapsed then and there, on the spot. Then I saw a blurred movement, an obscure, very dense form, swaggering through the trees. The movements made the shadowy, hazy humanoid silhouette appear inebriated, like an intoxicated drunk. I could see that whoever, or whatever it was, appeared to be jiggling the tree branches up and down. Then I saw him. There are no words, for even if I looked for them I couldn't find them, for they eluded me like the string on a hot air balloon, rising up into the sky, floating far, far away. This thing, this monstrously stubby, thick tree trunk of hair stood tall, proud, majestic, lofty, like a masterful skyscraper that you can't ignore. For its imposing presence seizes your attention, demands your respect, grabs you with a mixture of wondrous awe and extreme reservation that is driven by a compounding fear that courses through your veins like a fast train moving through a dark tunnel. He stood there so close to me, too close for comfort. I could hardly breathe, hardly draw breath. My heart jumped into my throat, my body lost its momentum, like a boat on the river overloaded with people that it threatens to suddenly capsize. For indeed nothing in my wildest dreams could prepare me for what I was seeing, as even all these years after the event, I shudder at this memory. The creature was so tall, so big, so huge, so burly, built like a giant army tank in every conceivable way, covered in long flowing dark hair. But beneath the hair I got the faint glimpses of grey skin, very defined muscle mass and tension. The creature was easily 8 foot tall, maybe more. He looked to be half man and half ape, for there were parts of his appearance that were distinctly primate-like, most especially seen in the overlong arms and the pyramid-shaped head. I noticed his face was remarkably human, with a dark leathery skin that shone with a little bit of a gleam to it, a very pronounced square jawline, high cheekbones, and a discerning pair of deep-set dark eyes that stared at me with such intensity they almost bored into my soul. The creature was male without a shadow of a doubt. I could perceive that powerful male energy. On reflection, I don't think the creature was actually caught off guard seeing me, as I think he'd been spying on me moments before. But he was so intrigued and curious by me. Really curious. I think I know why he revealed himself to me. I believe he perceived the energy I was exuding that night, the emotional pain and turmoil, the sense of betrayal, hopelessness. He had perceived it all. Of that I am in no doubt. The creature could read me like a book. I'm not sure if he wanted to comfort me or not, but he stood his ground as he observed me, with eyes that were remarkably kind. Unfortunately, I was the one that could not stand my ground, because I felt myself going all light-headed, and then I passed out. I think I'd fainted from the shock of seeing this anomalous creature. The next thing I knew was that the creature was hovering over me, his dark eyes frantic, his hands trying to slap my face. I think he thought I was dead. I opened my eyes to find these dark eyes staring into mine, eyes of liquid love, compassion, genuine concern. They were so close to mine that I could have stroked his face. I could hear the words soaring into my mind. "You gave me a scare. Are you all right?" The creature gave me a hand and pulled me to my feet. I pointed to my crutch. He grabbed it for me. For a second he was very still. He pointed to beyond the forest. Then I heard the sound of my daughter's voice along with Gladys calling my name. "Mum! Mum, are you there? Mum! Mum! Mum, we're looking for you. Where are you, Mum? Are you there?" "It'll be all right," came the voice in my head. "It'll work out in the end. The path was chosen before you were born. Trust it." I was startled. Had the creature really just said that to me? Surely I had not imagined it. But I was certain it wasn't my imagination. The voice that had spoken to me was very definitely male. It was different to the voice in my imagination. The creature looked at me, nodded, put a pine cone in my hand, and then glided away. I still have that pine cone today in pride of place on my mantel. What many may consider ordinary is priceless to me. "Oh, there you are," came Gladys's voice. "What induced you to come this far on that broken leg of yours? You're asking for trouble." I ran towards my daughter and then to Gladys. I cried, I've just seen a Bigfoot. I've just seen a Bigfoot. It spoke to me. It spoke to me in my mind." That all happened over 20 years ago. Does time not march on? I'm glad to say that me and Gladys finally settled our differences. I forgave her for her past indiscretions, as there is no point in holding on to bitterness. It'll eat you alive. Furthermore, I've come to realise that the Bigfoot was right. There is a chosen path for our lives. We need to embrace it and go with the flow. Granted, there are lessons to learn on life's journey. I'm glad to inform you that Gladys, who thought she was doomed to be single all her life, against all odds is now happily married with 2 teenage children of her own. She lives in Chicago. My children, being that much older, have left home and started families of their own a while back, and they're very happy. As for my relationship with my husband, I couldn't be happier. I believe, despite everything, we were meant to be together. He is the quintessential love of my life. So in the end, everything worked out for the greater good, I can assure you of that. So even when it seems that your life is barely holding on by a thin silvery thread, remember the universe has you cupped graciously in the palm of her hand. Never doubt that for a fleeting second. I don't. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, goodbye and good night.